But how do, like, so, and since I've joined ACBA, I feel like James is a little micromanaged because I'm like, well, so how do I support him and helping him, make the best out of this organization? Because I don't know if I should speak up or just say, well, what's really going on? I mean, he is aggressive at times, and that's his personality, but I know it's for the greater good. I just don't know like how to help him.
Yeah, I felt that way
What
a lot
advice?
too. And then I've been on both sides of it. So right now, to like this weekend, I had an issue where I was really attacked. And like I said, people will attack you, even on a board where everyone's
Mhm.
volunteering, because people have their own issues, they power dynamics. I mean, as much as we like to think, even if it's a board, in this particular board, it's all women. Oh, we're all women and we all want the same thing. No, because there's still power dynamics, there's still personalities, there's still egos. And I was called out and like very personally attacked for something that was had nothing to do with me. And it was basically I'm putting everyone on notice to shut up and sit down and do what I say. I mean, that's basically what it is. When someone lashes out with power like that, they're trying to silence everyone else around them. And so, I wasn't going to stand for that and did whatever I did. So then I'm like in the James situation, right? Where I'm looking around me like, okay, where's my support? Where's everyone saying sanction this conduct? This is a problem. This isn't okay. And it's been kind of mixed results where some people would reach out to me privately and say, oh, what happened to you was horrible. Well, you need to say that publicly. And if you don't have the strength to say publicly to the whole board what you say to me privately, you have to ask yourself why that is. And if you're too intimidated or scared of power, or just because you think it'll mess up your reputation because it's too political, you got to quit the board. You can't be there because you're not effective if for whatever reason you can't say publicly what you would say privately. On the other side of that, there's situations where like I've tried to do the right thing or had ideas and people might not get it or they don't see it or there's pushback or there's drama. That's when I go to other people and ask their opinion because there's always a way to communicate stuff. And like, if you're coming into an organization that's very conservative, there's a way to present your personality and your opinions, but in their scheme. So like, it's like kind of meet them halfway. Like if you have a really radical idea, like James, he has a lot of amazing ideas. I would think about how you do it. Like, okay, let me, instead of sending an email to everyone or texting everyone, because James has ideas and he texts me, emails, he's calling, put it on the agenda. It can wait a month. New business, send a memo beforehand so everyone can see it written out. They've had time to digest, it's been on the agenda, it's there, and then they can look at it. Now, that's not really James's style because he wants to text and email and tell us all, but he could compromise in that way to kind of fit into an existing structure of maybe people are a little slower, they don't want to do so much, or they like the way things are. So I think it's like framing where then you're not giving up any ideas, but you're framing it in a way that's more palatable for people to hear. I don't know if that's helpful, but
That was super helpful for me. And then this is my last question. Do you, when you have to tell someone no, do you feel bad about saying no to that person, or like saying so many no's and you're like, oh my gosh, I just said no again? Because I have that where it's hard for me to say no, and then I have my plate is super full, and now I'm like, and then I heard you, one of your things was it's okay to quit, but I'm like, oh gosh, I'm a quitter now because I'm saying no, I can't do it.
yeah. I what is my trick for saying no? I have been that person who says, let me think about it, and then I let someone else convince me to say no. And then I feel better about going back. I'm the same way. I wish I could do everything. I want to do everything, even though I have too much energy. And yes, I want to give everybody money. I donate to all this stuff, and people are like, oh, why are you sponsoring this? Like, you're an insurance attorney. I'm like, oh, they asked, and it's helping women, and I don't know. So I am the queen of saying, let me get back to you, and then having to gather my strength. But in the moment, I can't say no either. I really can't. I'm better at it with clients than I am with like charity or my time.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you that there's like a secret sauce other to literally say, let me think about it, and then say, hey, after a lot of thought, I realize I have these other commitments and I really can't. And then maybe it makes it, I think like maybe it makes it feel better too, like you really thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
This couldn't work.
I like that one better. Okay.
I have one question that got prompted with Tanya's last question. Sally, have you ever kind of, based on the political climate that we have right now, have you kind of dealt with maybe controversial ideas and how it's handled in organizations and firms? And, what's your advice to, whoever's watching in terms of how to handle that?
I have two things. I think it's different for firms and bosses and clients versus organizations that we volunteer for. And I hear all these people say, well, we all want to be anti-racist. We all want to be pro-women, pro-diversity in every form. So you got to call it out in your firm. Well, I'm not calling out the named partner if I'm a second year or like my supervisor the day out. Like, that's not going to happen. But what I always felt comfortable doing, even when I was a baby lawyer, was at least asking why. So like someone says, like I can remember there was like a candidate that came in for a secretarial job who was African-American woman. And she had said something about like she had kids, but she didn't have a husband. And so you can see where this is going. So when she leaves, oh, she's probably like one of these single moms that like has all these dads. And what they're saying. I was just like, oh, really? What made you think that? Well, no, I don't know. What do you mean? That I think is really effective because you're kind of calling it out without calling it out and letting them think about it. And you could always ask a good faith question. And then that's information for you to decide if this is a culture you want to be in. Okay. Because the reality is, if that's how this guy is talking about Black secretaries or whatever, how much opportunities are going to be for me as a woman? Probably not a lot, because he's coming from a whole other place. So in organizations, I feel like it's different because unless you're joining this organization because I want to be the governor, so I joined the board of Emerge, and it's like very political because you're doing it almost like a job. But most of us, we join organizations for fun or to meet people. And I know James was really helpful to me when, of course, over the summer with everything happening and people very motivated after George Floyd's death, we're in the Inns of Court. And our Inns of Court had this big party, like right after the George Floyd incident, where they're giving each other awards. Oh, you're such a great actor. Oh, no, you're so great. Oh, we're all so awesome. And no one said anything about George Floyd. There was no statement. And I was like, gross. Like, how are you going to have this whole party and talk about how awesome you are and not talk about what literally just happened? Like, ew. So I sent an email like, hey, like, what's up with that? And this could have been handled better. And there's a lot going on right now. And we are, a bunch of lawyers. And the reaction I got from someone in that organization who was a woman of color was like very harsh, like basically stay away from me, white lady, trying to tell me what to do, blah, 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 blah. And the lesson I learned there was like, people, no matter your sex or your race or your orientation, can learn to become their own oppressors. And like, it's surprising where you find allies in places you think you will find them or you won't find them. And then people that you think will agree with you that'll come out and say, you're wrong and you're a terrible person. So in that instance, I reached out to James, I reached out to friends so I could talk about how I felt about it, what it meant to me, what to do next. So many organizations are so broken that it's not worth your time, but other ones are worth your time if you can find your people and the mission is there.